All right, welcome back, everyone. This is third episode of Washed in the Wild. We're going to go into a little bit about kind of starting out and hunting today, fishing, whatever it might be. Probably focus a little bit on ice fishing since it is the season right now. Well, maybe not today, but we've been making ice pretty well here in North Dakota, leading up to the last couple of days of a little bit of a warm front. But other than that, we've got deer hunting recaps, more of that. And I think that, three of the four of us don't really have a lot of experience in getting started in hunting on our own. But Dan has a little bit more experience in doing it maybe without a mentor, especially a father as a mentor. So
yeah. So my hunting experience, I had a great father and everything growing up. It's just the outdoors, wasn't a big deal to him. That wasn't one of his passions. So, for me, it was a lot of, I had two older brothers, one of which was really into hunting. My middle brother was just kind of into it. And there's a big age gap, 6 years between my oldest brother and I. So most of it was just kind of figuring it out with my friends, right? We just kind of were outdoors and always loved being outside. I always gravitated to those friends that lived in the country, and that usually meant in the fall hunting. But, there was, I shared a story last week of, I think the first waterfowl I ever shot was a coot, and I had no idea what we were doing. We just snuck up on this thing, couldn't understand why it never flew, and shot it, right? And then the chaos started from there of going over our boots and all those things. So, I would say the big thing of learning how to do really anything, but especially something in the outdoors, is just that ability to learn and be open to learning, especially from your failures, right? Because you're going to fail a lot. We talked about that the last couple of weeks. Is we've, especially like deer hunting, for example, you're going to be 90% failure, 10% successful, right? And you could say fishing and bird hunting's a little bit better, but a lot of what you do is learning from your failures, right? And also paying attention to those people around you, whether it's your friends or your friends' dads or anything like that. Just asking questions, being open to, checking your pride at the door, I think is another big one. That understanding that, I got it. Well, if you've never ever done something before, like cleaning a bird, cleaning a shotgun, all those kinds of things are, if that's completely foreign to you, don't take anything for granted. There's little tips, tricks, things that you can learn just from observing someone, that you'll never understand. And I think another thing is trying to be prepared. One thing that I'm learning now is, especially, I love to go fishing and, ice fishing now. The worst thing you can do is get outside when your hands are frozen and be like, okay, I'm going to try to tie a knot now. Like when you get a little bit older, your blood isn't flowing anymore, and it's miserable trying to have frostbit hands and control monofilament line, right? So, try to think ahead, think of those things that, what you're fishing for, how you're gonna fish, so when you're out there, it's ready to go. But invariably you're gonna get out there and go, oh, I didn't think of that, and then remember it, right?
Hey, can we go back to the coot shoot for a second?
Sure. Was
that your uncle?
No, that was one of my, I would say, the mentor that I had. That it was one of my friends' dad.
So here's the only difference between how you got through that and how I got through that. For me, it wasn't a coot. I was a little kid with a BB gun, and I shot a bird in the yard. And I was pretty dang proud of that because My dad made me eat that. And he was teaching a lesson when he did that, right?
Yeah.
You know, it was, for me, it was about don't shoot it unless you're going to eat it,
Yep.
you know, type of thing. Or you do, you know, hides, furs, whatever. But yeah, that was the only thing. You didn't have to eat the coot.
No, I didn't have to eat the coot.
All right.
Thank
I
goodness.
just, and
Thank
by the way,
goodness.
my blood is still flowing, being the oldest one in the room.
Well, everyone did look at you when he said that.
I know.
No, well, I was identifying with, you know, once you hit a certain age, you're.
What is that age?
I feel like it's 39.
What?
Well, then I'm probably dead.
I'm not saying you can't be very successful in the outdoors. It's just, man, things get harder. It feels like, you know, when you hunt for 2 or 3 days straight, and you're like, man, this hurts.
Well, you're still a couple surgeries behind him, so he's got some parts that are a lot younger than 38, 39.
I'm
so
becoming
that's
bionic.
probably helping.
Well, and you've talked about your hands getting cold and trying to tie a knot. I mean, if you're going to go out on the ice, really, if you're going to go out anywhere, you got to be careful, because we were just talking prior to starting the episode about a day that Dan and I fished a couple of years ago up on Audubon, and it was just really cold, and I was warm, but I ended up with a little bit of frostbite in my hands because, you know, 3 fingers were tingling for quite a while afterwards. But you got to be careful. You know, it's not just ice. You know, yes, obviously you got to pay attention to thickness of ice, but it's pretty easy for things to go south pretty fast out there. That's not meant to be intimidating. It's just meant to be learn some of this. Mentors, you have all these people today have all of these mechanisms where they can get information, and so don't just look at the fun big fish, big buck, big turkey stuff, you know, or piles of ducks, Gentry, and you know, think about that part. Try to learn some of the safety parts of it as well.
Well, it's a lesson that I think, you know, you might take for granted a little bit in North Dakota. You might expect somebody, like pretty much anybody, to be fairly familiar, because, I mean, there's a lot of days where you just driving around out here on the interstate or whatever, you kind of need to have some level of like survival gear in the winters, because it gets so nasty cold, and the you know, the visibility can be so bad. So I think that, you know, there's probably a lot of people that don't do that to begin with. But just the same kind of thing, you know, like, be aware of where you're at, of your surroundings, because, yeah, things can turn bad fast. And we were just talking about, you know, there's some places out west right now with just some wind that came through today. There's like over 1 million people without power, and you know, in the dead of winter, especially in the North Country, I mean, that can be, you know, a danger to your life, you know. So I think that anytime you go out in the outdoors, even if it's hot and sunny, like, you still have to be aware of what the problems could be, and try to kind of anticipate, like, you know, not scare yourself out of doing it, whatever it is that you want to do, but, like, you know, first aid kit, you know, something that you can use as a tourniquet, something you can use to get dry, start a fire. Like, even if it's something as simple as going ice fishing, I think it might seem a little bit silly to some people, but, you know, there's lakes out here where there might not be a house within miles and miles, and, you know, you punch your vehicle through the ice in a bad spot, or you know, get a flat tire or something, or whatever it might be. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong, and, you know, you could be stuck out there. Like, I think you were talking about in the first episode, no phone service normally in that one area, and you go through, and, you know, next thing you know, you might need to build a fire to survive in a situation like that. So, you know, it definitely is intimidating when you're first getting into these types of things. But I think that's a lot of the horror stories that you hear are just people that are maybe think that they're, you know, maybe a little more safe than they actually are, or they just haven't experienced anything bad, so they aren't necessarily prepared for it. But
yeah, I think I'll just build upon that. A lot of that is being physically prepared. You know, that's one thing, especially when I'm, you know, fishing, depending on what you're doing, isn't as physically taxing, you know, but if you're going deer hunting, upland hunting, especially, you know, I hate to say, if you can't walk a mile, you know, do some prep in the off season, right? Because if you're going to be trudging through snow or high weeds or brush or something like that, it's important to be in some kind of physical shape, right? You're going to enjoy it a lot more. First of all, you're going to be able to get further afield, and I think a lot of the hunting that we all do is, when you get away from the roads, usually it's a mile and a half, 2 miles. You see way less people, right? And that's the kind of stuff I look for is where is the spot where there's no roads, and you're going to see some spectacular things. So yeah, to your point, being prepared in and out of season, and Gentry, I don't know if you want to share a story.
He's invincible. He doesn't care about what we're talking about. He's 17,
there was a scouting
years old
wait,
event
before,
that happened this year.
I know what you're talking about. But I just realized before we go into that, we forgot to do we made a fatal mistake at the start of the episode, gentlemen. Does anyone know what it is?
Yeah,
we did not pray. Good
Yeah,
gosh.
we missed that last week too, I believe.
Oh, luckily I'm here.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Take it away.
Start us in, son.
All right. Dear Lord, thank you for just giving us all safe traveling mercies here. I thank you for just giving us the opportunity to do something like this. I pray that it reaches the right ears, the right people. And pray for us to just have good conversation. Amen.
Amen.
All right, back to this story. Finish the description of it, and then I'll go into it.
Well, I don't. You need to explain to everyone what you were wearing at the time.
Oh, okay.
And
we'll go here.
because that's important. Speaking of being prepared, and this, I don't want to say younger generation, but yeah, I'm gonna call the younger generation out a little bit in the no jeans, sweatpants, and Crocs. Sometimes that's not the appropriate garb to do what you're doing outside. So
all right, well I'll take it away. Let me set the stage for you. It's early. I think it was September 1st actually. Or no, I went goose hunting September 1st. I think it was like August 28th, and I was scouting for geese. And it was me and a buddy, and we were driving out north and east of Bismarck. Can't give the exact location away, but we were. It was like earlier in the day, so we saw a couple like small feeds, and weren't really doing anything. And we were driving. And my car, previous to this, like the last week, the air had been leaking out of the tire at like an accelerated rate. So it was like,
So you had a flat.
no. And the makings of a flat. And my buddy was like, "Well, we'd have to go fill gas, and like I don't really want to buy
get
gas
back to
right
the
now."
logic on that.
Yeah, it wasn't the smartest, but my buddy was like, "Well, I'd have to go get gas, and I don't really feel like paying for gas right now." And it's like, it's fine, we'll just take mine. Like we both know how to change a tire. Like, should something go wrong, we'll be fine. Something did go wrong, but then that specific tire on my car has never been changed, so all the nuts were like factory tight, so they're really hard. Now I'm like cranking it out with the tire iron. We've been out there for like 15 minutes probably, and this van drives by, and it's this like older farmer guy trying to be helpful, whatever. He's like, "Oh, you guys need you need help?" I was like, "I'm getting her going. I got like 3 of the bolts started. I'm like doing the star or whatever, how you're supposed to on tires." And he's like, "Here, let me take a try."
I gotta write this down because I got so much to say. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I'll give you time to write. You need a pen, pencil. What are we doing here? And all right. So he's like, I went to call Dad just to like tell him what happened, and I get back around, and my friend's just kind of watching this guy work, and he's kind of looking at me and then looking back at this guy. And I was like, I tried to mouth to him like, what are you talking about? And the guy finally stands up and he's like, "Well, you guys' tire iron is stripped. Like I don't know what happened, but like it's just falling right over the bolts now." And I was like, it wasn't before I went to call my dad. I was like, it was working before. He's like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe you tried too hard." I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." And then he's like, "Well," I was like, and then by that point I told my dad to come out because right after he said the tire iron was stripped, he's like, "Well, how far do you think your help is?" Whatever. I was like, "I don't know, probably like 30 minutes, 45. He's like, "Well, I live about 15 minutes away, so like by the time I'd get there and then find like the right size and then get back," he's like, "Your help's probably gonna be here, so I think I'll just head out. My wife's making dinner anyways." But he's like, "You boys," he's like, "You boys, best of luck to you." And I was like, "All right." He drives off, and then Dad gets there 40 minutes or like.
Hold up. We Can you explain to us what the weather was? And this is important.
Okay, so
what the weather was like before you left, and what
that
turned
specific
into.
August day, it was a nice like 55 degrees when I left, and it was gonna get down to like 40, like at the peak, like low. And I was wearing sweatpants, Crocs with socks, and a t-shirt and a hoodie, I believe.
There was no. You had a T-shirt on when I.
No, there was a hoodie.
Anyways.
No. Just let me. I had a camo zip up in my back seat from my past goose hunting trip, and I had that on, and then I took it off because I got hot. And then when he got there, he was mad at me because I didn't have a coat.
Hold on. There's another important piece of
What are we?
of stranded survival.
What else are we missing?
What should you not do when you're in a stranded situation?
Oh yes,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is another thing.
Call Dad.
No. I had to be honest, I still don't know how this happened because the lights were on for like 2 minutes, like maybe. I had the hazards on right away because there was another car behind me right when I got the flat that drove by, and I had the hazards on, and then like after 2 minutes of like looking at the tire, I was like, wait, my hazards are on. Turn the key, whatever, turn the hazards off, and then he gets there. We change the tire, and I go to start it, and it just pops up like battery low, and I was like, oh. So I also needed to jump that night.
So just to clarify,
Oh, yeah?
factory tight is rust.
Yeah, I mean,
He-
it's my vehicle, so I can own some of this, and
He did drive it
Yeah.
for like
yeah.
8 years before I did. So it's not like I've just been like
There's
mudding
too much going on. I can't. The show would be over.
I called and talked to him. Thank God we had cell phone reception. So, and I was the other thing is to know spatially where you're at. What especially when you get back in these back roads, country roads. We have an app that you can define my phone kind of thing. So I knew exactly where he was. So I was able to basically.
And
drive
I also
right
gave
to
you
him.
expert directions because
Yes.
he was going to take the wrong exit off the interstate. Because I
Correct.
was on a road that actually connects straight to the interstate. As a
Correct.
matter of fact.
So what did you learn?
If there's a problem with a car, don't drive it, especially not far away from your home. And don't leave the lights on when it's cold after you shut your car off. And well, now I have a actually right-sized wrench for the bolts in my car.
They're lugs.
Yeah.
I will just let you
I'm
know
blanking. I'm sorry.
if you leave the lights on when it's warm, the battery will still die. In case
Yeah,
you were
the cold was just.
And if you shut the key off, the flashes are still gonna flash.
Yeah, I didn't have the. It was a lot of stuff. There's a lot of lessons
Dude,
learned.
you opened this door, so.
He opened it, but Dad, let's pivot back to you and your mishaps in the hunting world and your vehicle mishaps of the fishing world. Let's tell your story.
I have plenty.
Didn't we tell that last
No,
week?
we didn't. I
Well.
don't think we did.
The ice fishing one?
With
Yeah.
the drive shaft?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed
Yeah.
it.
That was the first.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Either way.
Anyhow, it's
Wow.
mistakes were made, and
Wow.
the long story short, be prepared. We're lucky, we're blessed. Blessed and cursed, I would say, in a lot of ways with cell phones. But to your point, have a winter survival kit. All the things that you should do, and then periodically look at it. Right. Make sure that you have something. Another thing, having been horribly stuck a couple times, it never hurts to have water. Because if you got to dig yourself out, especially snow, oh man, there's few things in this world that you're gonna wear yourself out than laying under a vehicle, digging. So, anyways, we're making it sound like this is always the bad things, but yeah,
There's a lot of good that comes out of hunting, not just vehicle mishaps.
Well,
Don't-
I mean, I
don't
Oh,
think
yeah,
miss the
because Gentry's
perception.
becoming a mechanic now
This is
because
true.
of,
This is true.
a flat tire.
My car actually currently has another issue.
I
Believe it or
think
not.
that it's important to talk about that though, because I feel like a lot of people getting into hunting. We mentioned the YouTube University kind of, which is great. There's lots of resources, more than there's ever been to learn this kind of stuff. Not that all the resources are good ones, but there's a lot of stuff out there. But you know, when it comes to hunting and fishing specifically, you see the good, you know, you see the successes. And once in a while now, like the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, it seems like there's more of a trend for people to be able to share their failures and acceptably, you know. For a long time, it was just like kill shots, you know, that was it. That's all. And most of the hunting show was like 5 hunts in 20 minutes. And it was like the deer walking in and getting shot and then them walking up to it. And then it would go to the next one. And now they, you know, I think different shows are kind of showing different things, which is good. My point being that, you know, it's not always, it's very rarely actually going to end up looking like what you'll see on, you know, the big shows on Netflix or the, you know, the big YouTube channels and stuff. There's some guys that are really good at showing what it's really like, but, you know, for the most part, a lot of those guys have great places to hunt and fish. A lot of times that they're not competing with anybody else on, and so like if you're expecting to go out there and have the same kind of success that
Wait
those
for
guys are
public land.
having,
Public land happens.
Yeah.
exactly.
A lot.
And so, you know, I think that's something that I still fall into. You know, I love watching, you know, hunting and fishing content, and it's, you know, it's frustrating sometimes to watch that stuff and be like, man, this guy, you know, caught a giant fish in, you know, what seemed like 2 minutes. And I have never caught a fish that big in my life, but, you know, it doesn't show that there was, you know, 16 days on the ice and nights as well before that, you know, little clip or whatever it may be.
You know, by the way, they live in Manitoba, you know, the
Yeah.
place that we all, you just hear about mythical, right? So,
Right.
yeah, I hear you.
And I mean, we have a story ourselves. We got stuck coming down off of a mountain from Utah last year on an elk hunt. Just the nastiest road you could ever, if you can call it a road, that you could ever imagine. And saved our tails with like a $20 Temu air compressor that I had thrown in the
Ooh,
back of my
there you go.
pickup
Another
right
essential.
before we left.
Write
And,
it down, guys.
you know,
Air compressor.
Exactly. Something is better than nothing. And, you know, the spare was pretty low on air, so we patched the one that had the flat and filled it, and then the patch didn't hold, so then we pulled the spare off and filled the spare, and then we put a second patch in the a second plug, in the first one, and then filled that back up. And by the end of it, this little tiny plastic air compressor literally was smoking. And but we got out of there and we were fine, and we drove 900 miles home that day on that spare tire, and we didn't have another problem. But, you know, just having that thought to say, well, you know, I'm going to throw this in my pickup before I go on a week-long, you know, backcountry whatever kind of trip. And it doesn't have to be a trip that big, but that's the kind of stuff you don't see on TV.
Yeah.
So.
And I think there's certain stuff that, like, you look back and it's like, oh yeah, they saved me, and then there's other things that you put in and it's like, dang, that was really nice to have. Like snacks. Like, to be honest, not a lot of people talk about it. Snacks are such a big part of hunting. Like, for my entire goose season, it was deer jerky. Like, driving out in the truck like an hour away or whatever, or like setting up decoys and having deer jerky. And it was like, it obviously I could have done it without it, but like, it helps.
That's funny because a couple weekends ago I was deer hunting eating goose jerky.
It's
And it
a
was
full
great.
circle moment, guys. Like,
But
you
I mean,
eat
to
your
that-
animals.
You
It
get
all
some
comes
heated
through.
digestion too.
Right. And
So-
to that point, I mean, I think that it's easy if you're thinking about going out and hunting and fishing all day, it's easy to not get hungry or not think about eating. But especially when you're doing stuff that's physically, you know, demanding. Like, I have to force myself to eat a lot of the days.
Agreed.
And I started doing that a lot more deliberately this year. Like, even you got to bring stuff that you want to eat. You know, you don't want to bring like some, you know, protein bar that tastes like protein that isn't very good.
Or
Like,
some like plastic bag ham
Yeah.
sandwich that we
I
made
mean,
last week.
yeah,
It's
I'll bring Halloween candy or like whatever it
Don't you
is, you know, during rifle season, because I'm like, oh, this is actually going to be good. But I noticed this year I brought significantly more like little light snacks than I would normally would, and I didn't get tired. I wasn't getting any more sleep than I normally would, but I wasn't falling asleep while I was hunting or anything like that. And so I mean, it's easy to forget about that, especially fishing is like, oh, I'm not really working that hard. But when you're out on the ice all day, I mean, anybody that's fished a morning and come home in the afternoon, I mean, I think it's almost automatic. You walk in the door and you're ready for like a 3-hour nap on those really cold days. But it's, you know, it's just getting sapped out of you and you don't even realize it. So
I will say, do you want to? All right, well, I just got a quick thing. The candy is a really good idea. Mind when you bring crushable things for snacks. Candy, crackers,
That's a good point.
chips. It
The
will get
loudest possible snacks you could
Plastic
possibly bring.
bag.
crushed. Plastic bags. It all.
And then your dad looks at you and goes, "What are you doing? God, it's so loud."
Yeah, the little Debbie's in the plastic packaging.
Oh,
and
that's my weakness right there. Yeah, those are allowed.
yes, very much so. Yeah, I mean it's easy to forget those little things, and I think that that's some of the stuff that at least a lot of myself and a lot of the people that I've hunted with have learned from not having. So it's definitely good to try to think through those things deliberately before you go out. And it might seem silly like to talk about it in a survival sense when you're going ice fishing, but seriously, like you never know. Even if you're totally fine and you have no concerns all day, like you never know when something's going to come in super handy, and that's the difference between that day continuing to be good and becoming very, very, very long.
Yeah, there's when you think about your needs as a person, if you're starving, I don't care what you do, you're not going to enjoy it. Yeah. And if you're cold, right? I mean, there are some people that your suffer factor can get a little higher if you really enjoy what you're doing. But the point of this show is people getting into this for the first time. So if your hands are cold, your feet are cold, you're going to be miserable. So you don't need to go. I'm not saying you need to go buy $400 boots, but to your point, if you live in North Dakota, hopefully you have a warm pair of boots, right? And that kind of thing is going to be an investment. They don't have to be hunting boots. They don't have to be, whatever it is. But being prepared for what you're walking into is I think really important.
And layered up. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
Layers are big.
You don't. I mean, I don't know how long I hunted with rubber boots, but layer up socks the right way. That aren't like spandex against your body. That helps a great deal, and so it can be done. You just need to think it through and just think through that. And there's so much stuff out there, like Ryer said, that can help with that. But it's also, I don't know, it seems like today everybody's going to have the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
And you don't have to have that.
Sitka and First Light and Kuiu and all that stuff is great. Or
It's amazing.
The full Shields float suit, ice fishing, waterproof. Like obviously you're gonna probably be a little more comfortable. But I think we mentioned it before. Like I think pretty much all of us had some period of time where we were in hand-me-downs or some Walmart jeans with camo that happened to be on them, and that kind of thing. That and I mean I personally have not really seen that I could notice a significant difference in success. I mean, you definitely can hunt a little bit or fish a little bit longer or harder on those really nasty days, but more often than not, I mean, I think that it's just being out there and trying to do the right things, whether it's setting up in the right spot or keeping the wind in your face, whatever it might be. Like that stuff's going to make astronomically more of a difference than whatever kind of clothes you're wearing. I mean, you look at the old pictures of a lot of our, grandfathers and fathers and whatever, and they're wearing jeans and red flannel, wool jackets and stuff like that, and they're out in the woods shooting deer that are 20 yards away. Like, you might hide a little bit better in some nice camo, but it's not going to make or break. In 99% of cases, it's not going to make or break your hunt or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So I think that some people that we've taken out for the first time have been really caught up in like, oh, do I have the right stuff? Is this okay? Like they'll send us pictures and be like, should I get this? Should I get that? And it always comes down to the same answer. I mean, everybody's got their personal preferences, but like is it comfortable? Like, are you going to be able to spend a day out doing whatever it is you're doing and not really worry about your clothes that much, like, or your boots or whatever it is? I think that's the biggest thing, is just being comfortable, because even if even if you have plenty of clothes, if you're not comfortable or you're worried about it, thinking about it, like you're going to be colder, you're going to feel like you're more wet than you actually are, whatever it is, because you're in your own head.
Yeah, but if you have the means to do it, that gear that Ryer was just talking about, it is amazing, and it took me 50 years to get to that point of that type of clothing. So maybe my blood is getting a little thinner. It didn't stop, but it might be a little thinner, Dan.
Yeah.
It's still moving because you're wearing First Light.
Yeah,
Oh, there we go.
So I mean, you said a couple things that I think are really profound. One of them is, in all of our stories, right? Having some idea of what the weather is going to be like. How, in hunting, the wind and knowing what it's going to do and how it's going to, it absolutely is going to impact your hunt. Fishing's the same thing. If it's going to be blowing 35 miles an hour, that's going to impact how and where I'm going to fish, right? So paying attention to that and how how the weather is going to change throughout the day when a front's moving through, one, being prepared for it, but how that can trigger the natural season of things, like in our deer season this year, we had a cool down, and that was like game on, when that hit. And if you can be out when that's happening and you have the means, or we'll call it the suffer factor, can be a little higher, and you can gut it out, you're going to be more successful, right? So that's having a will and a determination to just get through some crappy times, sometimes is probably the most important thing you can have, really.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to succeed sitting at home. And that's not to say that you need to go out every day. I mean, there's usually a couple days every rifle season, for example, where we don't hunt because the wind's blowing 50 miles an hour or something like that. And, you're just going to do more harm than good when it comes to the deer. But, yeah, in most cases, I mean, I think a lot of people shy away from a rainy day or for whatever it is, probably not the waterfowl hunters, but most other people, will
I've had
shy.
bad experiences in the rain too.
Well,
Don't be fooled. Rain is not always good.
I mean, the first day that I ever shot at a turkey, it was pouring rain, and my dad, he was hesitant to go, and I was 12 years old, and didn't even think twice. I was like, we're going, and he was willing to take me, so I commend him for that. But he called 2 toms inside 15 yards, and of course I shot about 4 feet over one of them's head. But it was an incredible morning, and it was pouring rain. And the first deer I shot, the whole weekend leading up to shooting that deer, it was pouring rain, and we were out there, and we planned on going to this old blind that we had never sat in before because it was somebody else's, but it had been there for like 20 years. We didn't even know if anybody still used it. And we usually sat in a ladder stand that was nearby it, and we went up there. It was raining. We're like, we want to go to this spot. We'll sit in this blind, and we get up there and we crest the little rise in the field on our way there, and the blind's gone. And it had been there for like, seriously, I think it was like 20. I mean, it was a camo blind, but it was white because it was bleached out completely from the sun. And we're like, of course, it's pouring rain. The one time we actually say we're going to sit here, but we sat there in that deer stand for 3 or 4 hours or whatever the sit was, and just got drenched and soaked. And granted, I didn't shoot a deer that day, but like, just being willing to, I've heard it from a couple people online that I follow. They like to say, embrace the suck. Yeah. And I think that's a good way to put it. I definitely think about that phrase a lot. Like opening Saturday this year in rifle season, the wind's blowing 25 miles an hour, and my pants are frozen to my boots. I mean, I'm sure you guys are out to it. That you can't succeed if you're not out there. So, but at the same time, don't put yourself in a bad spot. Yeah. So.
Well, we've been talking about, be prepared, gear, learn as much as you can, because there are those resources and stuff. But, probably one of the I will say the best way to do this is with a mentor or just a friend, somebody that can coach you along. And I think that maybe, and I could be wrong, so hopefully somebody will come along and correct me, but I would assume non-hunters are maybe intimidated by hunters in that, like I can't speak their language, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so non-hunters might be apprehensive to talk to somebody about their interest and so on. And so don't be apprehensive, because the vast majority of hunters they may not give you their spots, take you to their spots, but they will talk you through what works for them. And most of us we can talk about hunting all the time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of enjoyable, especially when we see interest in people. So don't be intimidated.
To your
You
point,
most likely will have something in common.
right? And to your point, like as somebody who used to work in a bow shop and had buddies that worked in fly shops and stuff, like finding a good, if you have a local store, whether for fishing, hunting, whatever it is, I think that, maybe not as much in the North Dakota area, but from my experience, like I went out to Montana and basically was starting from scratch, and that I had never hunted in that kind of environment. I had never hunted some of those species, didn't know anybody, to take me. And I just all I knew was how to find public land on my phone at that point. And I knew, how to look stuff up on YouTube. So that's pretty much how I learned. But, I met some people through looking for gear and whatnot in local shops, and they were hugely helpful in, learning to fly fish. Like that was something that I had never really considered doing. And then I move out to Missoula and I'm like, how could I live here and not fly fish, So I gave that a shot, and I never, had a ton of success, but like I got some great advice from people that I worked with once I got into a shop, and people that I had met at other shops. And I think, especially like the thing that comes to mind for me is, I'm a little biased, is archery. Like, if you have a good pro shop, you have a good spot where you can take your bow in to get work done. Like most of those guys hunt, most of those guys fish too. And, finding somebody, a local, even if they're not somebody they might end up becoming somebody that you can hunt with. But even if they don't, like they could have a lot of tips for whether it's spots or strategies or, the type of lure or fly to throw, the time of year to do a certain thing versus another, or even the time of year to stay away from an area because of the weather or the conditions. So I think that's one of the best resources to have too.
For fishing, the bait store.
Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely.
Right?
And if you're in Bismarck, North Dakota, and you're thinking about opening a bait store, please do. We lost ours. I missed that place. But anyways,
The best part of it was you could buy singular jigs for like 80 cents.
Oh, man. Let's talk about something else instead. Well, I do kind of want to say something about what you were saying. If you're worried to ask a question or you don't speak their language, before this, you guys were talking about turkey. I've never turkey hunted before. There's so many different types of hunting that you're like, I'm not some hunting aficionado, but these guys were speaking a language I've never heard, right? So you don't, you're not going to know everything about any situation. That's the cool thing about most sportsmen that call themselves conservationists, right? We want to share the knowledge. You want other people to get into this and experience, the outdoors, right? Right, to your point, those shops that they come in, they're profiting from your dollars you're spending there, right? So they want you to have a successful trip, right? So, yeah, I mean, I agree whether it's Shields or Runnings or any place around here that, a lot of times there's folks that are open to you. Well, and another thing that we're blessed with a lot here, is our, the DNR in North Dakota, we have our game and fish department. Those wildlife biologists and the folks there are awesome. There's some amazing resources, how to get into fishing. There's I just looked it up. There's a free fishing day on, I think it's the 27th and the 28th of December coming up here. So,
just for ice fishing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Hopefully it's
That's
warm.
cool.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Hey, we just
or
talked about
not.
suck factor.
We need
Right.
ice. Yeah. So there's and they have a lot of great resources on where to fish, right? If there's be some people that would probably yell at me for saying this, but there's, I mean, the science behind it, you know, that Game and Fish Department, they go out and they do these netting reports, you know, so on all these tiny little lakes in the middle of nowhere, which they all just came out, by the way, so I've been staring at netting reports for too long. Anyways, it's the and
only
it's
one that names fish.
yeah. So it's you know, getting to know those folks, you know, don't be and maybe we talk about this. I don't know if we do this time, but getting to the point where you're not afraid to talk to a game and fish warden, right? You know, like you know, I would say every experience I've ever had, it's always been a positive one with them. And there's a federal, we fish out of Lake Audubon a lot, and so that's a federal refuge. And there's a guy out there. I wish I could remember his name. I should hopefully listen to this one day. But that guy out there is amazing. You know, every time he comes, and he's already got my license because I'm parked there, and they can look it up by the driver's license. But he's a great guy. He's always asking, you know, how deep are they? Where are they at? How'd you do? You know, like, and they'll share that stuff right back to you. You know, it's, you know, so that's another big thing is call your local warden, you know, and just say, hey, I'm interested in getting into this. What, you know, where are the places to go? And if you have questions too, right? You know, like, you know, what am I allowed to do? Where am I not allowed to go? Right.
Yeah, that is another thing that I'm glad you brought up, because, like, back to my Montana example, I mean, especially these western states with hunting in particular, it can get very, very complicated in terms of tags and regulations and units and what you can shoot and where and when and with what weapon. And, you know, I probably called the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks in Missoula 15 times in that first season that I was out there. And I think that that's something that maybe a lot of people don't think of, but, you know, get a list of questions together, looking through the regulations online. It doesn't matter how silly you might think it is, because they've probably heard, you know, crazier things, and call them and just ask away, you know, because that's, I think, the biggest thing to help with that, being comfortable talking to a warden if you do get checked for whatever you're doing, is knowing for a fact that you are within the bounds of the law. Mm-hmm. And not only is it the right thing to do, but it's also, I mean, you can help yourself that way and be more comfortable in whatever it is you're doing. But another thing that popped into my head too is that aside from those shops, you know, a little more along the lines of what we've talked about in the past couple episodes, I think that a really good place to meet fellow outdoorsmen and women can be a local church that you go to. I would say, you know, I'm probably a little biased, but with my experience, like that kind of community, the church-going community, the Christian community, is got quite a bit higher concentration of outdoorsmen and women than other communities do. And I think that, you know, going to a men's group or women's group, or even just talking to people after, you know, mass or service is over, it can be a really great way to find, you know, friends, people that'll help you grow in your faith, but also people that'll, you know, potentially help you grow in whatever it is you want to be doing out in the outdoors, fishing and hunting. So, you know, just like any other social, you know, sticking your neck out, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. But I mean, from my experience, if you connect with somebody over hunting, maybe it's a guy thing, but even if you haven't known him for, you know, until that very day, like, you start talking about something that you guys both like to do, hunting and fishing wise, and I mean, you could stand there for 2 hours and just go, you know, and then you're basically halfway to being good friends already. So I think, yeah, for multiple reasons, you know, talk to people at church. If you go, and if you don't go, then maybe that's the reason you start going.
Amen. You said so many things there, and I would say some of the more deeper spiritual conversations that I've had with people are on the drive going somewhere, right? You know, and I don't recommend this, but when you can only drive 15 miles an hour because you're going to go off the road because you were fishing probably too long and you sat through 2 hours of sleet, you know, you pray a lot when you're on those roads, right? And you know, that's but it, you know, it's the getting there. You know, it's, to your point, it's the camaraderie of you know, because when you're hunting, fishing, there's a lot of downtime. Spoiler alert, you're gonna have some thinking time, right? And so spending that time, with someone and talking about something other than, how the Packers doing this year, right? Having a more than surface conversation is something that I've really been blessed with just about everybody I hunt with, because you have that time and you might as well connect with somebody in the process, right?
Fishing is very social while you're doing it, right? I mean, you don't have to be quiet.
Yeah.
Duck hunting is too, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're in the blind
Yeah.
with the guys or laying in layouts or whatever it might be. It's very social. Some of the other ones, somebody might try to wring your neck if you're being loud or moving around a lot or something like that.
Yeah, and
We got a turkey coming in, or
that could be a big factor in deciding what you start hunting first. If you're more comfortable talking to people and maybe not feeling quite as intense, then maybe waterfowl, upland game, fishing might be a little bit more your speed than big game hunting or turkey hunting. But it's different for everybody, and I think some people also are drawn to the intensity of those other types of hunting where it could be a little bit more, a little more quiet time and a little more, personal thought and, trying to be quiet and stealthy. And so, I mean, everybody's different, but I think that, you're eventually going to succeed whatever it is that you do. Like, you just put the time in, and I think one of the, Dan, you brought up a verse while we were kind of talking about this that I think is a pretty cool one to hear in the Bible. And there's a couple different versions of it that I think are worth like comparing. And the one that you brought up was NIV, and it's Proverbs 12:27. The lazy do not roast any game, but the diligent feed on the riches of the hunt. And I mean, I didn't do my homework and review the context of that, but it's pretty cool to see that kind of language in the Bible. And then the New American Bible, the Revised Edition, it says, "Sloth does not catch its prey, but the wealth of the diligent is splendid." And I think that it's interesting to see the way that those two verses, right next to each other, basically saying the same thing, the way that's worded differently. And, anything in the Bible like that, it can be read a lot of different ways. And it's cool to see, the language of kind of the outdoors. There's a bunch of references of hunting and hunters and providing for family in the Bible. And I think that, that's a great conversation starter too. If you are, whether it's church or going out with somebody, I like to, big thing for this, like have a little bit of scripture in your back pocket about something, even if it's something you completely don't understand, just to, bring it up with somebody to break the ice, or just to talk about it in those moments, or trying to get to know somebody and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Because there's a lot of different things in there that can be taken a lot of different ways. And I think there's some things that are meant to be taken one way, and there's a lot of other things that can be taken a lot of different ways. So,
well, there's deeper meaning in it too, right? I mean, how many times do you have to read it over, and that time goes by, you go back and look at it and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't get that the first time, type of thing. And so hunting's in there a lot. We should try to figure out how many times it's in there. And usually it's associated with providing, for your family and your relatives and so on and so forth. And providing in the context of the Bible is seems to be a lot about food, but I think it's also a fellowship, right? So as we've talked about, hunting tends to bring people together. That's what we're talking about right now. Well, fellowship, right? Get together and we talk about everything.
And it's directly connected to food, which I think is worth mentioning. There's another verse that I wanted to mention. It's in Genesis 27. Basically, Isaac is talking to his sons, and he's kind of on his deathbed, and he says, go out, get your hunting gear, your quiver, and your bow. Go out to their open country to hunt some game. Then prepare for me a dish in the way that I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may bless you before I die. And that's really profound for his relationship, with his son in that situation, and saying, like, I'm on my deathbed, like the way that I want to spend my last moments with you, potentially is like breaking bread with you, that something you've been able to provide. And I think that's that's probably a little bit deeper than a lot of the hunting moments that we experience on a day to day. But that connection is real, and whether it's whatever brings you into it, even if it is just the cooking. Like if you've never had wild game meat, go talk to somebody that you might think might have a connection, and it might get you into hunting just for how good it is. You never know.
Isaac's passing the torch too.
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, he was that provider.
Right.
So now he's handed it off to his son
Right.
to do the same. So yes, that is very, very cool. And you guys, you were mentioning like getting started, what to start with hunting wise and stuff.
Mhm.
From an eating standpoint, an ease standpoint, my personal opinion is people recommend, if they don't have a mentor, especially birds,
Yeah.
because I don't think I know anybody that doesn't know how to take a turkey apart on Thanksgiving table.
Agreed.
And you can throw it over your shoulder and walk to the vehicle. You can stuff a pheasant in your vest or carry it in your hand or whatever. And when you get home, it's familiar.
Yep.
Right? Whereas you harvest a deer and now you got to get that to the vehicle, et cetera. You need to know. But the one thing I will say, and I say this all the time, is that take that hide off, and God drew lines on that animal to tell you how to take it apart. And it's amazing, right? And so you can do it. It's just there's a lot more work involved there. And so if it's something you're thinking about, maybe try birds if you don't have a mentor. If you got a mentor, me, if I had to give everything up and keep one thing, it would be deer. So yours be ducks.
Well, waterfowl in general. I'm not going to limit it to ducks.
Oh, okay.
I don't mind the geese.
Well, then we
You
get
know what
all
I-
species of deer. So we get elk, moose, mule deer,
Oh, okay.
whitetails,
Yeah.
blacktails.
I'll go broader and say birds then. If we're
So
really
can
if
I
we're gonna
say
play that game?
I'm gonna say ungulates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Throw cows in there.
Hooved
So-
animals.
Look at you. All right. That
Somebody
kinda
paid
shocked me a
attention.
little
I had no idea what that word was, so thanks, son.
Hooved animals.
Yeah.
Viewers, learn something.
Jeez.
Pick up one thing. Is that an ugly?
We'll
I don't know
apologize
how to
for
say it.
Gentry. He takes a lot of grief, so he's got to give some back somewhere somehow.
We talk. You bring up a great point. We talk a lot about being prepared, and you're hunting to provide. If it's 95 degrees outside, you catch a fish, don't throw it on the bank and come back 2 hours later and expect that thing to be edible. If it's if you get an antelope tag and it's 95 degrees outside, you down an antelope, you need to get that thing on ice right now. Usually in the deer season it's a little bit cooler, but thinking about how you deal with a roast at home or different things like that, you're not going to let it get 90 degrees, right? So just think about preparing for and cooling down that food, whatever it is, because it makes a difference. I don't know. You guys haven't made sausage yet this year, have you?
No.
Maybe
Not
we
yet.
should. Yeah, maybe we should video that. I think that would be pretty cool. But
We can do that.
yeah. But anyways, that's one thing that I've learned, and it's miserable on your hands. Speaking of when you get old and things that are miserable, but if you can have that sausages, I'm talking to me right now, Matt.
Yeah, I think you were looking at him.
You looked right at me.
Your eyes.
If
said
you
it
can, if you can have that meat as cold as possible, like it seems to make a difference, right? That right on the borderline freezing, it's just easier to deal with, and so, anyways, I think that kind of that's a whole nother deal. But I agree with you.
That's a show in and of itself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It would be
Processing,
fun.
because
Yeah.
it would be because I grew up butchering, so it's a little bit easier for me as far as taking it apart. But when it comes to seasoning and flavoring and so on and so forth, I mean, we just go back and forth about, let's try this, let's try that. What do you think about this? Let's try to fix this, type of thing. And so we have fun. We make mistakes, but it all gets eaten. So
Generally, most of it gets better every year.
That
A little
Italian
bit.
sausage that we
So-
made last year, dude,
It's good.
that is off
It is
the
good.
charts.
But yeah, one thing I want to mention too, like for whoever's out there that might be watching this, wherever that might be listening to it, like, we don't have the answers to everything. In fact, most things. But we're happy to help whoever we can. So, if you guys want to reach out to our emails, whatever it might be, with questions, we can do our best to help point you in the right direction, help get you started. Again, take our opinions with a grain of salt, but we have, between all of us, have taken quite a few people out for their first times, and so we've got a pretty good little collection of stories that we kind of have been able to put this together off of. So, everybody's going to have a different experience out there, but I think everybody should try, one of these outdoor, pursuits, whether it's fishing, hunting, whatever. They should try it at least once. That's what I can say.
Yeah, if you're interested.
Do it. Yeah,
Yeah, do
and
it.
and that's just something real quick. One of the things that I probably spend too much time is BizMan, or if you're not from the area, it's basically Facebook Marketplace where used stuff. And ice fishing is one of those niche things where you can tell somebody was like, man, I'm getting into this. I'm getting out of it. I hate this, right? So that's another thing. If you're blessed enough to have a mentor or somebody you can go with, just to realize if you like it or not, because it's not 85 degrees in a sunny day open water fishing, right? And believe me, I love to open water fish too, but it's more effort, it's more work, and sometimes the payoff is way more. Sometimes it's way more effort, way more work for nothing, right? So, try to go with and experience it. And that probably goes with anything, whether you're going upland hunting or deer hunting, goose hunting, you can easily spend a lot of cash doing this. And
Waterfowling
Yeah.
is probably the
It
place
is
that you
so-
can dump the most money the
Make
fastest.
sure you really like waterfowl
Yes.
hunting before you buy anything.
But hopefully what you get out of this is, to really go waterfowl hunting, you need a shotgun and some warm clothes, right? You don't have to have all the stuff, as we shared, it definitely makes it a little better, but try it, experience it once, and keep an open mind to it. Like Ryer, like you said, you're not going to get anything sitting on your couch, right? So get out there and try it.
To be clear, you can get into a money pit with any one of these sports,
Yes.
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Maybe other than dove hunting or rabbit hunting.
I don't see how you could. Well,
Well, somebody's got a mojo and decoys and
Yes, but
did you guys know,
You're-
tidbit of information, glitter is banned in the sport of dove hunting in North Dakota because doves are so attracted to shiny things. Like, people in other states will literally just dump, like, glitter in fields or, like, put it on a blanket and lay it down, and the doves will just, like...
I have never
True
heard
story.
that.
True
I
story.
didn't know that either.
It is banned in North Dakota. You cannot use glitter or any other shiny objects other than mojos because of the flash of the wings. So, like, you can't use anything else.
Really?
Because they just apparently... I've never seen it, but I assume if it's banned, it had to have worked very well at some point.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
Second,
don't use glitter while you're dove hunting.
we're teaching here. We're
But-
educating.
Yeah, so we'll be on YouTube, a couple different channels. Check the description for email links. We got socials at Wildbound Media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. So feel free to give us a follow. We got episodes going to be posted every Saturday from here on out.
Hey, these guys
Indefinitely.
don't know it, and I think you're trying to wrap up, but
Oh.
I had communication with a guy from South Carolina today that was watching this.
Oh, shout him out.
Our first episode. Yeah, Hunter.
Yeah, it's somehow 1 out of our 10 views. So that's very cool.
Hey, I don't know how Hunter, his name's Hunter Brazil, or Brazel. I probably said it wrong, Hunter, so I'm going to apologize. But yeah, he watched it, and he said he liked it because it was just average people sitting around talking about the outdoors. So
Shout out to Hunter, our first review.
yeah, that's,
Very
well,
good.
we got family reviews. But
Wow,
we
those don't
can't-
really
we
count,
can't
though.
count
If you're
them.
not a family member and you leave us a review, we'll shout you out.
There we go.
It's the incentive.
We might have to change that rule if this list could get pretty long. If people
First
actually
100
start
people.
paying attention.
Where's my sign?
Yeah. We'll have a credits roll at the end. Thanks
Shout
to
outs.
all of this.
Gentry
all of that.
Holland. Call him here.
Well, have a good week, everybody.